I think that everybody knows what an important issue ethanol and sustainable fuels are, and of course how what an incredible job Brazil has done of producing them, and how controversial it is. The controversies between Brazil and the U.S. I don't think need to be spelled out to this audience. So I hope our panelists will make some interesting remarks.
Yes.
And about Brazil's production, how's it going? And welcome.
And one more, our panelist, Michael Hahn, chairman of Envion, a dear friend. Thank you, Michael.
I'm sorry, because you weren't here, we didn't introduce you.
He was there.
Everything's relevant. Where do I sit? Right here?
Yes.
Yes. Shall I change?
Yes.
Good morning. If you could have, I have my slides already, so ready to make a start. First, I'd like to thank the Fórum das Américas, which was kind enough to invite me on behalf of Petrobras Biocombustível to participate in the Sustainable Development Forum. Since I'm going to talk, among other things, about Petrobras' plans and views regarding the future of biofuels, it's important to clarify that any forward-looking statements in the context of this presentation reflect only our expectations on the specific issue in the future, not commitments. Next slide, please. Thank you. Among the factors that will shape your future, energy will be certainly one of the most critical, if not the most critical. When you look at a 25-year span up to 2035, according to the most credible scenarios issued by the most respectable international organizations, the energy world will look pretty much like it is today. But there will be some remarkable differences. World population will expand from 6.7 billion people to 8.5 billion people, and the population of emerging countries will contribute to most of this growth. Global primary energy demand will grow at a higher rate than population, and more than 90% of this increase will come from the emerging countries. Crude oil prices will rise steadily and cross the $200 milestone in nominal terms, obviously, reflecting rising production costs. Cap and trade systems, hopefully, will price carbon emissions in all the OECD countries, but still energy-related emissions will grow to around 35 gigatons a year of carbon dioxide, which will eventually lead global average temperatures to rise more than 3.5 degrees centigrade, far beyond the limit of 2 degrees centigrade agreed upon by key parties in Copenhagen 2 years ago. Fossil fuels will still be dominant, and oil demand will grow to a figure around 100 to 110 million barrels per day. But due to the effort to curb greenhouse gas emissions, the demand of biofuels for transport will undergo a much higher growth, by a factor of 4, from around 1 today to 4.5, 4.7 million barrels per day of equivalent oil, which would be roughly 8% of the transport fuel market. In other words, after a time span of 1 generation, the world will still rely mainly on oil products for power and mobility, no doubt about that. But relatively, the dependence on oil will be much smaller than today. And the greening, and you can move to the other slide. Okay, good. So I can do it myself. And the greening of the transport fuel mix implies that the gap left by oil must be filled by a basket of cleaner and more sustainable alternatives. There's no silver bullet here, only one alternative. Of course, better planned mass transport and more efficient engines will be a fundamental part of the solution, lowering the fuel demand. New concepts such as hybrid cars, plug-in hybrid vehicles, and electric vehicles, provided that the power for recharging the batteries comes from a green source, will continue to be deployed and will eventually play a very important role. However, clean and sustainable biofuels with a positive social impact along the whole life cycle and a carbon footprint substantially smaller than that of oil products will continue to be a key part, the most important part of the solution. Looking now at Petrobras, we look at our most important market, the transport fuel market, and then we identified a great opportunity in the challenge of greening the transport mix. A decision was made 4 years ago to include in our strategic statement, along with 4 other very traditional business segments, the segment focused on biofuels, with the guideline to operate globally in the sector, integrating activities always on a sustainable basis. And the word sustainable has a very precise meaning to Petrobras. Our biofuel has to be produced, transported, and marketed with verifiable social and environmental impacts and sustainability under a strict set of rules and criteria throughout the whole life cycle. Furthermore, specifically for the production of biofuels, Petrobras established in July 2008 a subsidiary company named Petrobras Biocombustível, which translates to Petrobras Biofuels, with the vision that by 2020, such company will be amongst the top 5 biofuel producers in the world. As a deployment of the corporate strategy, this year's review of Petrobras' business plan included in the $225 billion budget a $4.1 billion share for biofuels, with the aims of increasing Petrobras' share in Brazil's ethanol and biodiesel industry, from production to distribution, building a sustainable channel for ethanol logistics. We'll talk more about that briefly. Developing advanced biofuel production routes and improving existing production techniques and technologies. And along with this $4.1 billion budget, of which 2.5 would be for ethanol and biodiesel production alone, the 2011-15 business plan sets the rather challenging production goal of 6.5 billion liters of biofuels per year by 2015, 5.6 billion liters of ethanol, and 900 million liters of biodiesel. But overcoming challenges is the very core of our culture. After all, Petrobras Biocombustível started from scratch 3 years ago and ended last year with a production of 1.5 billion liters of biofuels, both ethanol and biodiesel, and also exporting an average of 80 megawatts of energy to the grid. Presently, we have operations in 9 Brazilian states, from the southern Rio Grande do Sul to the northern Pará. Under our own operations, or through partnerships, we run 5 biodiesel plants and 10 sugar and ethanol mills, one of which located in Mozambique. Integrated to our biodiesel value chain, we have 5,000 family farmers who are granted technical support and fair contracts to supply all the oily seeds they produce in order to feed part of our biodiesel operations. Equally important is the investment Petrobras is making in partnership with other players of the sector in a new company named Logum to build a new logistics system for ethanol, comprising of a pipeline system coupled with waterways. This project will not only increase the competitiveness of the ethanol produced in the new frontier by reducing freight costs, but also will improve the environmental sustainability of the product by avoiding the greenhouse gases emissions due to the road transport. In other words, we are greening biofuel logistics. And last but not least, I have to say a few words about our investment in biofuels technology. We have allocated $300 million in the next 5 years for research and development in biofuels, including a wide range of disciplines and a number of different focuses. At the end of the day, the goal of this technological effort is to put in place the concept of vertical growth, as opposed to the growth of the crop perimeter necessary to meet the required increase in biofuel production. Vertical growth will avoid all the inconvenience of the biofuels production growth, such as competition with food production, undesirable secondary land use change, pressure on natural resources, and pressure on ecosystems, apart from the higher logistic costs. By combining new industrial technologies, more productive varieties, advanced crop management, new source of carbon, and state-of-art science, we aim at reaching higher yields of biofuel production in terms of liters of fuel per hectare. That will raise the production without growing impacts. In other words, our ambition is to make greener what is already green, the Brazilian biofuel production. And with that, I bring my introduction to an end. I'll leave you with a green field of sugarcane. I'll be glad to take any questions you may have in the debate. Thank you very much.